Across the galaxy, they whispered about the strange bipedal species from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. The humans were weak, they said. Fragile beings with thin skin, brittle bones, and lifespans shorter than a Zephyrian's molting cycle. They had no natural weapons, no protective carapaces, no telepathic abilities. They were prey animals that somehow learned to use tools. The Galactic Council barely acknowledged their existence when first contact was made. Earth was catalogued as a developing civilization and left to mature naturally, like all primitive species. The great powers of the galaxy, the armored Krillian Empire, the psychic Etherian Collective, and the technologically superior Vex hegemony had more important matters to attend to than watching hairless apes play with fire. But something about humans nagged at the xenobiologists. They bred like vermin, yet showed remarkable cooperation. They were individually weak, yet their societies grew stronger with each passing cycle. Most puzzling of all, they seemed to thrive in conditions that would break other species. War, famine, natural disasters, where other civilizations would collapse, humans would adapt and emerge stronger. By the time the first human warship appeared at the edge of Krillian space, it was already too late to stop what was coming. The galaxy was about to learn a harsh truth that had taken Earth's predators millions of years to understand: humans weren't the prey. They never had been. They were the apex predators of a death world, and they were born for battle. The Etherian Deep Space Monitoring Station Whisper 9 hung in the void between star systems, its crystalline spires rotating slowly as they gathered data from across the galaxy. For 3 centuries, it had been the early warning system for the civilized worlds, detecting everything from stellar anomalies to the emergence of new spacefaring species. On the day that would later be marked as the beginning of the human wars, Senior Monitor ZYX Thala was performing routine scans of the Sol system. The bipedal mammals there had recently achieved basic nuclear fusion and were showing promising signs of technological development. Nothing unusual for a Class C developing civilization. Then, the readings changed. ZYX Thala's photosensitive organs flickered in confusion as energy signatures unlike anything in the galactic database appeared throughout the human system. Not 1 or 2 experimental vessels, but dozens of craft moving with purpose and coordination that suggested military organization. Impossible, ZYX Thala whispered, her crystalline form resonating with disbelief. According to all projections, the humans shouldn't achieve interstellar travel for at least another 2 centuries. Yet here they were, not only traveling between their planets but doing so with vessels that registered energy outputs comparable to mid-tier civilizations. The first shock came when one of the human vessels suddenly changed course and began moving directly toward Whisper 9. The station was cloaked using Etherian psychic technology that had never failed to hide their presence from primitive species. The humans should have been completely unaware of their existence. ZYX Thala immediately sent out a priority transmission to the Etherian Collective's capital world. The response was swift and dismissive: maintain observation protocol and avoid contact. The humans were probably following some kind of deep space anomaly and would turn away once they lost the trail. But the human ship didn't turn away. It continued on a direct intercept course, its energy signature growing stronger by the hour. More disturbing still, ZYX Thala began detecting additional human vessels emerging from their system. Not the slow, careful expansion of a newly spacefaring species, but rapid deployment patterns that spoke of military preparedness. As the first human ship drew closer, ZYX Thala could make out its design through the station sensors. The craft was unlike anything in the galactic archives. Where most civilizations built their vessels with smooth, efficient curves designed for optimal space travel, the human ship was angular and aggressive. Its hull bristled with what could only be weapons systems, and its reactor output suggested power generation capabilities that bordered on reckless. The ship came to a stop exactly 1,000 kilometers from Whisper 9 and began transmitting. The message was simple, broadcast in 17 different languages that the humans had somehow learned were spoken by galactic civilizations. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Starship Defiance. We know you're there. We would like to talk. ZYX Thala's form shimmered with shock. Not only had the humans detected the station through its psychic cloak, but they had somehow acquired knowledge of galactic languages and protocols. This was impossible for a species that had only just achieved fusion power. The senior monitor hesitated. First contact protocols were clear: no interaction with developing species until they had been properly evaluated by the Galactic Council. But these humans had already violated every assumption about developing species. They had found the station, they knew about the galactic community, and they were clearly far more advanced than their planet-bound status had indicated. After several minutes of tense silence, another transmission came from the human vessel. "We understand this is irregular. We know about the Galactic Council, the Etherian Collective, the Krillian Empire, and the Vex Hegemony. We've been monitoring your communications for the past 50 Earth years. We're ready to make formal contact." The implications hit ZYX Thala like a psychic storm. The humans had been listening to galactic communications for half a century without anyone knowing. They had learned languages, studied civilizations, and apparently developed technology at an impossible rate. This wasn't first contact with a primitive species. This was first contact with a civilization that had been preparing for this moment for generations. With growing dread, ZYX Thala activated the station's emergency protocols and began transmitting everything to Etherian High Command. The humans weren't just another developing species stumbling into space travel. They were something else entirely. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the alien monitoring station through the main viewport. She was a tall woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much combat, though none of the alien observers would have understood the significance of her scarred hands or the way she carried herself like a weapon always ready to be drawn. "Still no response, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander James Park from the communications station. "Give them time," Chen replied calmly. "We just shattered every assumption they had about us. They're probably having what humans would call a panic attack." The bridge crew chuckled grimly. They all knew what was coming. Earth's scientists and military strategists had been planning for this moment ever since they first intercepted alien transmissions in 2089. The galaxy was full of advanced civilizations, but none of them understood what humans really were. Chen remembered the briefings from Earth's top xenobiologists and military planners. The aliens saw humans as weak because they measured strength in all the wrong ways. They looked at individual physical capabilities, lifespans, natural defenses. They didn't understand that human strength had never come from any individual human. It came from what humans became when they worked together. "Captain," called out Commander Maria Santos from the tactical station, "I'm reading massive energy spikes from that alien station. Looks like they're transmitting to multiple locations simultaneously." "Let them," Chen said. "The more of them that know we're here, the better." "How are our other ships doing?" "Excellent. The Jerusalem just made contact with a Vex observation post near Alpha Centauri. The Mumbai is approaching Krillian space, and the Lagos is maintaining position at the edge of their territory. All according to plan." Chen nodded. This wasn't humanity's first contact with one alien civilization. This was first contact with all of them, simultaneously. Earth's leaders had decided long ago that they wouldn't be introduced to the galaxy as supplicants or curiosities. They would announce themselves as equals. The communication system crackled to life with an alien voice speaking accented but understandable English. "Human vessel, this is Senior Monitor ZYX Thala of the Etherian Collective. Your presence here is highly irregular. How did you locate our station?" Chen smiled, though she knew the alien couldn't see her. "The same way we located all the other monitoring stations, Senior Monitor. We've been watching the Watchers for quite some time. Permission to come aboard your station for formal discussions?" The silence that followed lasted nearly 10 minutes. When the alien finally responded, her voice carried overtones of something that humans would recognize as fear. That is not possible. Your species shows no signs of the psychic abilities necessary to penetrate our concealment technology." "You're right," Chen agreed. "We're not psychic. We're something else. Something you haven't encountered before. May I suggest we discuss this face to face? I think you'll find humans are full of surprises." Another long silence. Then, "Very well. You may dock with our station. But, be warned, human. The Galactic Council has strict protocols regarding contact with developing species." Chen's smile widened, though there was nothing friendly in it. Senior Monitor, with respect, I don't think we qualify as a developing species anymore.
Shall we say 30 minutes?
As the Defiance moved toward the alien station, Chen reflected on the irony of the situation. The aliens had been watching Earth for centuries, cataloging humans as another primitive species that might someday join the galactic community. They had observed human wars, disasters, and struggles with the clinical detachment of scientists studying bacteria. They had never bothered to look closely enough to understand what they were really watching. Human wars weren't signs of primitive aggression. They were training exercises.
Human disasters weren't evidence of weakness.
They were stress tests that made the species stronger. Every challenge that would have broken other civilizations had instead forged humans into something harder, more adaptable, more dangerous. The aliens measured military might by the size of their fleets, the power of their weapons, the strength of their shields. Humans measured it by the willingness to use violence when necessary, and the capacity to endure whatever price victory demanded. As the docking tube connected between the two vessels, Chen straightened her uniform and checked her sidearm. Not that she expected violence, but because humans had learned long ago that showing up armed to a first meeting sent a very clear message about the kind of species they were dealing with. The galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't another client race looking for guidance and protection. They were apex predators who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to kill anything that threatened them. And everything in the galaxy was about to become a potential threat. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council had seen many historic moments over its 3,000-year existence, but never had it been filled with such palpable tension. Representatives from over 40 different species sat, stood, hovered, or coiled in their designated sections, all waiting for the emergency session to begin. High Counselor Vortaith of the Krillian Empire rose from his throne-like chair, his massive armored form casting shadows across the chamber floor. At nearly 3 meters tall and covered in natural bone plates that could deflect energy weapons, he was an imposing figure even by galactic standards. His people had dominated this sector of space for over 2 millennia through a combination of superior technology, natural durability, and unwavering discipline. Fellow counselors, Vortaith's voice rumbled through the chamber's acoustic systems, we have gathered to address the unprecedented situation regarding the species known as humans from the Sol system. In the past 72 hours, they have made simultaneous contact with monitoring stations from 4 different civilizations. This violates every protocol we have established for first contact with developing species. A chorus of clicks, chirps, and harmonic tones rose from the assembled representatives as they expressed their agreement. Counselor Thylara of the Etherian Collective floated forward, her crystalline body shimmering with agitation. High Counselor, the situation is far worse than mere protocol violations, she said, her telepathic voice reaching every mind in the chamber.
My people's senior monitor ZYX Thala has provided disturbing intelligence about these humans.
They have been monitoring our communications for decades without our knowledge. They possess technology that can penetrate our psychic concealment fields. Most troubling of all, they appear to have been preparing for contact with hostile intentions.
Representative clicks of the Vex hegemony's mechanical form word as his processors analyzed the available data.
Incorrect assessment, his synthesized voice announced.
Human technology shows clear derivation from their own scientific development.
No evidence of outside interference or accelerated advancement beyond natural parameters. However, their rate of technological growth exceeds projected models by 347%. This statement caused another wave of concerned sounds throughout the chamber. The Vex were the galaxy's premier technological civilization, and their predictive models were considered infallible when it came to technological development.
Counselor Zephran of the Peaceful Harmony Worlds raised a tentacle in concern. Perhaps we are overreacting.
Every species develops at its own pace. The humans may simply be naturally gifted in certain areas.
Have we attempted diplomatic contact? High Counselor Vortaith's armor plates shifted ominously.
We have received reports from all contact sites. The humans are not behaving like a typical emerging species. They arrived at our monitoring stations with military vessels. They demanded to speak with ranking officials. They demonstrated knowledge of our civilizations that should have taken decades of formal contact to acquire. More concerning, added Thylara, is their apparent lack of fear or deference.
Every species we have encountered shows appropriate caution when first meeting superior civilizations. The humans acted as if they considered themselves our equals. The chamber erupted in shocked silence. The concept of a newly spacefaring species considering themselves equal to civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel for millennia was almost incomprehensible. Ambassador Veltar of the Neutral Commerce Guild, a species known for their pragmatic approach to galactic politics, spoke up. Have we considered the possibility that they are simply ignorant of our capabilities? Many primitive species have inflated opinions of their own importance until they understand the scope of galactic civilization. That was our initial assessment, Vortaith replied grimly. Until we received more detailed reports. The human ships are not primitive vessels attempting to mimic advanced technology. They are genuinely advanced craft using principles our scientists are still analyzing. Their weapons systems, while crude compared to our own, are far more powerful than anything a newly spacefaring species should possess. Clix's mechanical form rotated to face the assembly. Analysis of human vessel design reveals concerning patterns. Primary focus on weapons systems and defensive capabilities rather than exploration or scientific equipment. Hull construction optimized for combat rather than efficiency. Reactor output suggests capability for sustained military operations. Conclusion: these are warships, not exploration vessels. The implications of this statement rippled through the chamber like a physical force. In the 3,000 years of the Galactic Council's existence, no newly contacted species had ever approached them with military vessels as their first diplomatic contact. Counselor Mordun of the Siegebreaker clans, a warrior species known throughout the galaxy for their combat prowess, leaned forward with interest. His scarred carapace bore the marks of 100 battles, and his forearms ended in natural claws that could rend metal. Perhaps these humans are more interesting than initially assumed, he growled. Tell me, what do we know of their military capabilities beyond ship design? Vylara's form flickered with distress. That is where the situation becomes truly alarming. Our deep scans of their home system reveal a species that has been in constant warfare for their entire recorded history. Not occasional conflicts like most species experience, but continuous, systematic warfare involving their entire population. Fascinating, Mordun rumbled approvingly. Most species develop beyond constant warfare as they advance technologically. These humans maintain their warrior nature while developing advanced technology? It's worse than that, Vortaith interjected. According to our xenobiological analysis, humans evolved on what can only be classified as a death world. Extreme weather, aggressive wildlife, frequent natural disasters, and limited resources. Most species from such environments either remain primitive or develop extreme pacifism as a survival mechanism. Humans did neither. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Death worlds were rare, and species that evolved on them were even rarer. Those that survived typically did so by becoming either incredibly resilient or by learning to avoid conflict entirely. A species that evolved on a death world while maintaining aggressive tendencies was unprecedented. Ambassador Veltar's commercial instincts kicked in. What are their population numbers and resource capabilities? Clix processed the question instantly. Current human population, approximately 8 billion individuals. Industrial capacity, sufficient to support multiple interstellar vessels simultaneously. Resource extraction, planet-wide operations utilizing approximately 97% of available landmass. Rate of resource consumption indicates preparation for major expansion. The number 8 billion sent another wave of shock through the assembly. Most spacefaring species had populations in the hundreds of millions at most. A species with 8 billion members that was preparing for interstellar expansion represented a demographic force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They breed like the swarm species, whispered Counselor Zephyran, referring to the galaxy's nightmare scenario of unchecked reproduction and expansion. No, Vylara corrected, the swarm species are mindless. These humans show complex social organization, advanced planning, and technological innovation. They combine the reproductive rate of a swarm with the intelligence of an apex species. High Counselor Vortaith stood to his full imposing height. The question before us is clear. Do we treat the humans as a potential member species and attempt normal diplomatic integration, or do we classify them as a potential threat and take appropriate measures? Representative Clix's form word as he processed diplomatic protocols. Standard procedure requires offering membership opportunities to all spacefaring species that meet minimum technological and social requirements. Humans appear to meet these requirements. But, do they meet our safety requirements? Vortaith countered. A species of 8 billion aggressive individuals with advanced military technology and a history of constant warfare? They could destabilize the entire galactic order. Counselor Mordun's battle-scarred form shifted with what might have been amusement. Or they could strengthen it. The galaxy has grown soft with 3 millennia of peace. Perhaps we need a species that remembers how to fight. You cannot be serious, Thylara's telepathic voice carried overtones of horror. The last major war in this galaxy cost billions of lives. We have built our civilization on the principle that violence is a last resort, used only when all other options have failed. And that principle has served us well, agreed Vortaith, but we must consider all possibilities. These humans may not share our commitment to peaceful resolution. If they view the galaxy as a resource to be conquered rather than a community to join, we need to be prepared. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of species weighing in on the human question. Some argued for immediate diplomatic engagement, others for careful observation, and a few for preemptive action to contain what they saw as a potential threat. Finally, High Counselor Vortaith called for order. We will proceed with formal first contact protocols. A diplomatic mission will be dispatched to the Sol system to meet with human representatives and assess their intentions. However, given the unusual circumstances, this mission will be accompanied by appropriate security measures. What kind of security measures? Asked Ambassador Veltar. Vortaith's armor plates shifted ominously. A full battle fleet. If the humans truly are as peaceful as they claim, they will understand our caution. If they are not. He let the implication hang in the air. As the session concluded and representatives began departing for their homeworlds, none of them noticed the small monitoring device that had been discreetly attached to the chamber's communication array. The device had been broadcasting everything directly to a human intelligence vessel hiding in a nearby nebula. Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES reconnaissance ship Shadow Dancer reviewed the transmission with grim satisfaction. Earth's intelligence services had predicted this exact scenario, and now they had confirmation that the galactic powers were split on how to handle humanity's emergence. Send word to Earth Command, she ordered her communications officer. Tell them the Galaxy Council is dispatching a diplomatic mission backed by a battle fleet. Recommend we accelerate our timeline. What about the diplomatic option, Captain? Asked her executive officer. Maybe they really do want peaceful contact. Rodriguez's smile was sharp and predatory. Lieutenant, in human history, when someone shows up for diplomatic talks backed by overwhelming military force, they're not there to talk. They're there to dictate terms. The Galactic Council just made the same mistake that every other power has made when dealing with humans. Which mistake is that, Captain? They assumed that because we're new to the galactic stage, we'll be impressed by their show of force. They don't understand that humans wrote the book on intimidation tactics. And, more importantly, they don't understand that the best way to unite humanity is to threaten us. As the Shadow Dancer slipped away into dark space to report its findings, Captain Rodriguez reflected on the irony of the situation. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with a potentially dangerous species that needed to be handled carefully. They had no idea they were about to face the most dangerous predators their galaxy had ever seen. Humans had been preparing for this confrontation since the day they first heard alien voices in space. Every war, every conflict, every hard-won lesson in violence and survival had been building toward this moment. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's apex predators had never been replaced. Admiral Vikoros of the Krillian Imperial Navy stood on the command deck of the dreadnought Inevitable Victory, watching the blue-white star of Sol grow larger through the viewport. Behind him stretched the most impressive diplomatic fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council, 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and over 100 support vessels from 6 different civilizations.
It was, by any measure, a show of overwhelming force designed to demonstrate the galaxy's military superiority to the upstart humans. The message was clear: join the galactic community on our terms, or face the consequences. "Admiral," reported Captain Zilnath from the communication station, "we are receiving multiple targeting locks from throughout the Sol system." Lycoros turned, his massive armored form moving with the fluid grace that made Krillians such formidable warriors. "Multiple locks? How many vessels are the humans fielding?" "That's the problem, Admiral. We're not detecting any vessels. The targeting signatures are coming from fixed positions throughout the system, but our sensors show only empty space." The Admiral's combat instincts, honed through decades of warfare, immediately went on high alert. "Show me the tactical display." The main screen lit up with a three-dimensional representation of the Sol system. Red targeting indicators appeared throughout the display, originating from positions near planets, asteroid belts, and even apparently empty regions of space. There were hundreds of them. "This is impossible," muttered Commander Vorton from the tactical station. "We're showing targeting locks from positions where our sensors detect no significant mass concentrations. Either their stealth technology is beyond anything we've encountered, or..." "Or what, Commander?" Lycoros demanded. "Or they've weaponized their entire star system, Admiral." The implications of this statement sent a chill through the command deck. Most civilizations built space stations and defensive platforms around their most important worlds. But the targeting signatures suggested that the humans had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "It's from the third planet, Admiral." "Put it through." The main screen shifted to show a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform. He was middle-aged with graying hair and eyes that seemed to measure everything they looked at. Behind him was what was clearly a military command center, with dozens of personnel monitoring various displays and control stations. "I am Admiral Marcus Stone, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Force," the human said in perfectly pronounced galactic standard. "Welcome to Sol System, Admiral Lycoros. We've been expecting you." Lycoros felt another chill at the casual use of his name and rank. The humans shouldn't have known who was commanding the diplomatic fleet, much less had time to learn the proper pronunciation of Krillian names. "Admiral Stone," Lycoros replied formally, "I am here on behalf of the Galactic Council to conduct first contact protocols with your species. I trust you understand the honor being accorded to your people." The human's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested amusement. "Oh, we understand perfectly, Admiral. A diplomatic mission escorted by enough firepower to glass a planet. Very impressive. Though I have to say, your force projection could use some work." "I'm not sure I understand," Lycoros said carefully. Admiral Stone gestured to someone off-screen, and the display behind him shifted to show the galactic fleet from an external perspective. "You see, when you want to intimidate someone with a show of force, you need to make sure you're actually showing superior force." Suddenly, the space around the galactic fleet lit up with energy signatures as hundreds of previously invisible human vessels decloaked simultaneously. Sleek, angular warships materialized from every direction, their weapon systems already powered and targeted on the galactic fleet. The command deck of the inevitable victory erupted in alarm as officers scrambled to analyze the new tactical situation. In seconds, the galactic fleet had gone from overwhelming superiority to being completely surrounded and outnumbered 3-1. "How is this possible?" breathed Captain Zilnath. "Our sensors should have detected ship masses of this size." "Admiral," Commander Vorton reported from Tactical, "these aren't traditional spacecraft. They appear to be constructed using ultralight materials and powered by some kind of contained fusion system we've never encountered. They were literally invisible to our mass detection systems." Admiral Stone's voice carried clearly over the communication channel. "Impressive, isn't it? We learned a few things from monitoring your fleets over the years. Your sensor systems are optimized for detecting traditional spacecraft construction. Our engineers took a different approach." Lycoros forced himself to remain calm despite the tactical nightmare unfolding around him. "Admiral Stone, surely you understand that surrounding a diplomatic mission with military vessels is considered an act of aggression by galactic law." "Is it?"
Stone replied mildly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you brought enough firepower to sterilize our home world to what you call a diplomatic mission. We're just making sure the conversation stays diplomatic. The human was right, and Lycoros knew it. The galactic fleet could indeed destroy Earth's surface, and the humans had clearly recognized the threat. But their response was far beyond anything a newly spacefaring species should have been capable of. Admiral, the human continued, perhaps we should dispense with the intimidation tactics and have an honest conversation. Your Galactic Council wants to know whether humanity represents a threat to galactic stability. The answer is simple: we are exactly as much of a threat as you choose to make us. Meaning what, exactly? Stone's expression hardened slightly. Meaning we have no interest in conquering your civilizations or disrupting your way of life. We're perfectly happy to establish trade relationships, exchange technology, and participate in galactic governance as equals. But if you treat us as enemies, we will respond accordingly. And if we decide that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed unrestricted access to galactic civilization? Lycoros asked bluntly. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made the experienced Krillian warrior take notice. Admiral, let me tell you something about human history. For most of our existence as a species, we've been fighting something. Sometimes it was predators, sometimes it was the environment, and sometimes it was each other. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, plague outbreaks, and wars that killed hundreds of millions of our people. Do you know what all of these experiences taught us? Enlighten me. They taught us that the most dangerous thing you can do to a human is to try to destroy them, because humans who believe they're fighting for their survival don't follow the normal rules of warfare. We don't retreat when outnumbered. We don't surrender when defeat seems certain. We don't stop fighting until either we're all dead, or the threat is eliminated. The command deck of the inevitable victory had gone completely silent. Every officer was listening to the human's words, and each one felt the chill of recognition. This wasn't a bluff or posturing. This was a simple statement of fact delivered with the calm certainty of someone who had looked into the abyss and survived. Furthermore, Stone continued, every major power in your galactic community has made the same fundamental error in assessing humanity. You've looked at our individual physical capabilities and concluded we're weak. You've looked at our short lifespans and concluded we're fragile. You've looked at our tendency toward internal conflict and concluded we're primitive. And what should we have concluded? Lycoros asked, genuinely curious now. That we're the apex predators of a death world, and we've spent our entire evolutionary history learning how to kill anything that threatens us. Our weakness is actually adaptability. Our fragility is actually resilience. Our primitive conflicts are actually a species-wide training program that's been running for thousands of years. Admiral Stone gestured to the tactical display showing the surrounded galactic fleet. You brought a battle fleet to intimidate 8 billion humans who have been preparing for interstellar warfare since before you knew we existed. Did you really think we'd be impressed? Lycoros found himself in the unusual position of grudging respect for an opponent. What do you propose, Admiral Stone? Simple. We conduct actual diplomatic negotiations as equals. Your representatives come aboard our flagship, our representatives come aboard yours. We discuss terms for human integration into galactic society based on mutual respect and benefit, not threats and intimidation. And if we refuse? Stone's smile was sharp and predatory. Then, you'll discover what humans are really capable of when someone threatens their home. I should mention that those targeting locks you detected earlier? Those aren't just from ships. We've spent the last 50 years turning this entire system into the most heavily fortified position in known space. Asteroid mining platforms that double as missile launchers, orbital stations that are actually weapons platforms, and defensive systems that your technology can't even detect yet. The tactical display updated to show the true extent of human defenses throughout the Sol system. It was staggering. Every major celestial body had been fortified, every asteroid belt had been turned into a weapons platform, and the space between planets was filled with defensive installations that their sensors had completely failed to detect. My God, whispered Commander Vorton. The entire system is a fortress. Not a fortress, Admiral Stone corrected, having somehow heard the comment. A fortress is designed to withstand attack. This is designed to destroy anything that attacks it. There's a difference. Lycoros looked around at his officers and saw his own thoughts reflected in their expressions. The humans weren't just another spacefaring species looking to join galactic civilization. They were a military power that had been preparing for interstellar conflict since before first contact. More importantly, they had achieved all of this while maintaining the pretense of being a primitive, developing species. The level of planning, coordination, and deception required was beyond anything the galactic community had encountered. Admiral Stone, Lycoros said finally, I believe it would be in everyone's best interest to begin formal negotiations immediately. However, I will need to consult with the Galactic Council regarding the unusual circumstances of this first contact. Of course, Stone replied. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. All of us. As the communication ended and the command deck of the Inevitable Victory buzzed with urgent preparations for an emergency council session, Admiral Lycoros reflected on the stunning reversal of the situation. The galactic community had come to Sol System to dictate terms to a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing the most formidable military power any of them had ever encountered. The humans had been right about one thing: they were exactly as much of a threat as the galaxy chose to make them. And, based on what he had seen today, Lycoros sincerely hoped the Galactic Council would choose to make them allies rather than enemies. Because if humanity decided that galactic civilization was a threat to their survival, the galaxy was going to learn what 8 billion apex predators could accomplish when they put their minds to it. 3 months after the tense standoff in Sol System, the Galactic Council remained deadlocked on the human question. The diplomatic negotiations had proceeded cordially but produced little concrete progress, with each side probing the other's capabilities and intentions while maintaining careful politeness. But, in the shadowy depths of Vex space, far from the council chambers and diplomatic venues, a different kind of decision was being made. Prime Constructor Kix 9947 stood motionless in the central processing chamber of the Vex Hegemony's primary analysis facility, his mechanical form connected to thousands of data streams flowing in from across the galaxy. For the Vex, who had long ago transcended biological limitations through technological integration, emotion was irrelevant. Only logic mattered. Only efficiency. Only the continued perfection of their civilization. And the humans were a dangerous inefficiency that threatened everything the Vex had built. Analysis complete, announced Secondary Constructor Null 4821, his synthesized voice carrying no inflection whatsoever. Human technological development patterns indicate probability of surpassing Vex capabilities within 2 centuries. Current trajectory suggests humans will achieve technological parity within 50 years. Prime Constructor Kix 9947 processed this information through his quantum matrix. The Vex had maintained technological supremacy in the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that they were the most advanced beings in known space. The existence of a species that could challenge that supremacy was unacceptable. Probability of successful diplomatic integration? Kix 9947 inquired. 12.4%, reported Tertiary Constructor Kex 7731. Human psychological profiles indicate strong resistance to subjugation. They will not accept subordinate status within existing galactic hierarchy. Integration would require acknowledging them as equals, which would destabilize current power structures. Alternative solutions? Null 4821's optical sensors flickered as he accessed classified protocols. 3 options. First, preemptive elimination of human civilization before they achieve full interstellar capability. Second, technological contamination to slow their development. Third, proxy warfare using other galactic species as agents. Kix 9947 considered each option with mechanical precision. The first was direct but risked uniting the other galactic powers against the Vex. The second was subtle but might not be effective against a species that had proven remarkably adaptable. The third offered plausible deniability but required careful manipulation. Initiate Protocol Omega Black, Kix 9947 decided. Begin proxy warfare scenario using the Krillian Empire as primary agents. simultaneously deploy technological contamination protocols to disrupt human development. If both approaches fail, prepare for direct elimination. Acknowledged. Beginning implementation. What the Vex had not anticipated was that their supposedly secure communication networks had been compromised by human intelligence operations for the past 6 months. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, in a facility that didn't officially exist, General Patricia Hayes reviewed the intercepted Vex communications with cold fury. As the head of Earth's Special Operations Command, she had spent her entire career preparing for conflicts that most people couldn't imagine. The Vex decision to eliminate humanity was exactly the kind of threat she had been training to counter. "How long do we have?" she asked her intelligence chief, Colonel David Kim. "Based on their planning patterns, the Vex will begin their proxy operations within weeks," Kim replied. "They're going to try to manipulate the Krillians into attacking us directly while simultaneously attempting to sabotage our technological development through cyber warfare." General Hayes smiled grimly. "They're making the same mistake everyone makes when dealing with humans. They assume we're reactive. They think they can set the terms of engagement and will respond according to their timeline." "What are your orders, General?" "Activate Operation Prometheus. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone tries to exterminate us." Colonel Kim's expression shifted to one of concern. "General, Prometheus is designed for total warfare scenarios. If we implement it, there's no going back to peaceful coexistence." "Colonel, the moment the Vex decided to eliminate our species, peaceful coexistence became impossible. They want to find out what 8 billion humans are capable of when they're fighting for survival. Let's give them a demonstration." Within hours, activation codes were transmitted to hidden human facilities throughout the galaxy. For 50 years, while maintaining the facade of being a developing species, humanity had been seeding the galaxy with covert operatives, intelligence networks, and military assets. The Galactic Council had seen only what humans wanted them to see. The first phase of Operation Prometheus began simultaneously across 17 different star systems. In Krillian space, Admiral Lykoros was reviewing fleet deployment reports when his command center erupted in alarms. "Admiral," shouted his tactical officer, "we're receiving reports of coordinated attacks on our outer colonies. Multiple systems are under assault." "By whom?" Lykoros demanded, even as his warrior instincts told him he already knew the answer. "The attacks appear to be coming from Vex forces, Admiral." "But that's impossible. The Vex haven't engaged in direct military action in over a millennium." Lykoros studied the tactical reports flowing in from across Krillian territory. The attacks were precise, targeted, and designed to look like opening moves in a larger campaign. But something felt wrong. The Vex were known for their technological superiority, not for crude military assaults. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we're intercepting communications that suggest these attacks are preliminary strikes designed to test our defensive capabilities. The Vex appear to be preparing for a major offensive campaign." Before Lykoros could respond, another alarm sounded. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from human space. It's marked as urgent diplomatic communication." "Put it through." Admiral Marcus Stone appeared on the main screen, but gone was the calm, diplomatic demeanor from their previous encounters. Now he looked like what he truly was, a military commander preparing for war. "Admiral Lykoros," Stone began without preamble, "we have intelligence indicating that the Vex hegemony has initiated a campaign to manipulate your empire into attacking humanity. The attacks on your outer colonies are false flag operations designed to make you believe we are responsible." Lykoros felt his armor plates shift in surprise. "That's a serious accusation, Admiral Stone." "Do you have proof?" "We have complete recordings of Vex communications planning these operations," Stone replied. "We're transmitting them to you now. You'll find they show clear evidence that the Vex intend to use the Krillian Empire as a proxy army to eliminate humanity, after which they plan to eliminate the Krillian Empire as well." The communication logs that arrived moments later were devastating. Not only did they show Vex involvement in the attacks on Krillian colonies, but they revealed the full scope of the Vex plan to eliminate both species and consolidate galactic power under their control. "How did you obtain Vex internal communications?" Lycoros asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Admiral, we've been monitoring all galactic communications since before first contact. We know about every classified project, every secret alliance, and every hidden agenda in the galaxy. The question now is whether the Krillian Empire wants to be a Vex puppet or a human ally. Before Lycoros could respond, his tactical officer interrupted. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout Vex space. It appears they're mobilizing their entire battle fleet. Admiral Stone's expression became even more grim. That's because they know we've exposed their plan. They're accelerating their timeline. Within hours, the Vex will launch simultaneous attacks on both human and Krillian territory, hoping to eliminate us both before we can coordinate our response. What do you propose? Lycoros asked. Full military alliance. Immediate coordination of our forces to strike Vex facilities before they can complete their mobilization. We hit them hard, fast, and without warning. Lycoros considered the proposal for exactly 3 seconds. The Krillian Empire had survived for millennia by making quick, decisive choices in the face of existential threats. Agreed. What are your operational parameters? We've already begun, Stone replied with a predatory smile. Even as they spoke, human stealth ships throughout Vex space were launching coordinated attacks on key military installations. The Vex, supremely confident in their technological superiority, had never bothered to develop significant defensive measures against physical attack. Their entire military doctrine was based on technological supremacy, not tactical flexibility. They were about to learn why that was a fatal mistake when dealing with humans. Deep space monitoring stations went dark as human sabotage teams disabled their sensors. Communication relays fell silent as cyber warfare specialists turned the Vex own technology against them. Most devastating of all, human infiltration teams that had been positioned years in advance began systematically destroying critical infrastructure throughout Vex territory. The Vex had spent centuries perfecting their technology and building an empire based on mechanical precision and logical efficiency. But they had never faced an enemy that specialized in asymmetric warfare, unconventional tactics, and the kind of creative destruction that humans had perfected through millennia of conflict. Prime Constructor Kix 9947 stood in his command center, processing the flood of disaster reports with mechanical calm even as his civilization began to collapse around him. The humans hadn't just responded to the Vex threat. They had anticipated it, prepared for it, and turned it into an opportunity to demonstrate their true capabilities. Damage assessment, he requested. 47% of primary military installations offline, reported null 4821. 63% of deep space monitoring capability compromised. Communication networks operating at 12% capacity. Multiple critical systems showing signs of systematic sabotage. How is this possible? Human forces were completely contained within their home system. Error in analysis, admitted Kex 7731. Humans have maintained covert assets throughout the galaxy for approximately 50 years. Current estimate suggests over 10,000 human operatives positioned in critical locations across all major civilizations. The implication struck Kex 9947's quantum matrix like a logic bomb. The humans hadn't just been preparing for first contact. They had been preparing for total war, and they had been doing it while maintaining the complete pretense of being a primitive, planet-bound species. New assessment, Kex 9947 commanded. What are human military capabilities when operating without restrictions? The analysis took several minutes as the Vex computers processed all available data with their new understanding of human deception capabilities. Assessment complete, null 4821 reported. If humans are operating without technological restrictions, estimated military capability exceeds all known galactic civilizations combined. Previous assessments were based on deliberately limited data designed to conceal true capabilities. Kex 9947 processed this information with growing alarm. The Vex hegemony had just declared war on a species that had been pretending to be primitive while actually being the most advanced military power in the galaxy. And, judging by the systematic destruction of Vex infrastructure happening throughout their territory, the humans were very, very good at war. 6 months after the Vex Gambit began, the galaxy had been forever changed. What the history books would later call the First Human War was over, but its consequences would reshape galactic civilization for millennia to come. High Counselor Vortaith of the Krillian Empire stood in the ruins of what had once been the Vex hegemony's primary construction facility. The massive complex, which had once churned out advanced technology for half the galaxy, was now a twisted maze of melted metal and shattered crystal. The destruction was so complete that it would take archaeologists centuries to understand how the facility had originally functioned. "Impressive work," Admiral Vikoros commented as he joined the High Counselor in surveying the devastation. "The humans didn't just destroy it. They made sure it could never be rebuilt." Vortaith nodded grimly. The same scene was repeated across what had been Vex space. Every major installation, every technological center, every military facility had been systematically destroyed with surgical precision. The humans hadn't engaged in indiscriminate destruction. They had carefully dismantled an entire civilization's capacity for technological warfare while leaving civilian populations largely unharmed. It was, by any measure, the most efficient military campaign in galactic history. "Have we located any surviving Vex leadership?" Vortaith asked. "The humans have them," Vikoros replied. "Along with complete copies of all Vex technology and databases. They're offering to share both with their allies, but keeping the Vex leadership under what they call protective custody until the galaxy decides what to do with them." The irony wasn't lost on either Krillian. 6 months ago, the galaxy had been debating whether humanity was ready to join galactic civilization. Now they were debating whether galactic civilization was ready for humanity. A new voice joined the conversation as Admiral Marcus Stone approached, flanked by 2 human soldiers whose presence somehow made the massive Krillian warriors feel small and vulnerable. "Gentlemen," Stone said in greeting. "I trust you're finding the tour educational." "Educational is one word for it," Vortaith replied carefully. "Admiral Stone, your species' military capabilities have exceeded every projection we made. The question now is what you intend to do with them." Stone was quiet for a moment, looking out over the destroyed facility. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had seen the true cost of victory. "High Counselor, when this war began, the Vex made a fundamental error. They assumed that because humans were new to the galactic stage, we would fight according to galactic conventions. They thought we would engage in the kind of limited, formal warfare that your civilizations have practiced for millennia. And, instead?" Vikoros prompted. "Instead, they faced human warfare. Total commitment, unlimited scope, and absolutely no concern for conventional limitations. When humans fight for survival, we don't stop until the threat is eliminated completely. The Vex wanted to exterminate our species, so we eliminated theirs as a military power." Vortaith felt a chill at the casual way Stone discussed the destruction of an entire civilization's military capacity. "And, now? What are humanity's intentions regarding the rest of the galaxy?" Admiral Stone turned to face the 2 Krillian leaders directly. "That depends entirely on whether the galaxy chooses to treat us as allies or as threats. The Vex chose to see us as a threat to be eliminated. They learned the consequences of that choice. Are you threatening the rest of us?" Vikoros asked bluntly. "I'm stating a fact," Stone replied. "Humans don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to rule over other species. We want to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. But, if someone threatens our survival, we will respond with overwhelming force until that threat no longer exists." The 3 military leaders stood in silence for several minutes, each contemplating the new reality that humanity had forced upon the galaxy. Finally, Vortaith spoke. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is convening an emergency session to address the post-war situation. We would like humanity to send representatives. To negotiate the terms of our integration into galactic society?" Stone asked. "To negotiate the terms of galactic society's integration with humanity," Vortaith corrected. "After what we've witnessed, I think it's clear that the galaxy needs to adapt to accommodate your species, not the other way around." Stone smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "High Counselor, you're beginning to understand something that took our own species millennia to learn." "Which is?" peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of mutual understanding about the consequences of conflict. The galaxy is about to become a much more peaceful place, because everyone now understands exactly what happens when you threaten humanity. 3 weeks later, the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council was packed with representatives from every known spacefaring civilization. But, the atmosphere was completely different from the emergency session that had been called when humans first made contact. Then, the debate had been about whether to accept humanity into galactic society. Now, it was about how to restructure that society to accommodate a species that had proven capable of destroying any threat to their survival. High Counselor Vortaith called the session to order, his massive form somehow seeming less imposing than it had before the war. Fellow counselors, we gather today to formally welcome humanity to the Galactic Council and to address the new realities that their presence brings to our civilization. Ambassador Sarah Chen, humanity's newly appointed representative to the Galactic Council, rose to address the assembly. She was a small woman by human standards, but every being in the chamber was acutely aware that she spoke for 8 billion apex predators who had just demonstrated their capacity for total warfare. Honored counselors, she began, humanity comes to this body not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals offering partnership. We have no desire to dominate galactic civilization, but we will not accept subjugation by it. Counselor Thylara of the Etherian Collective spoke first, her crystalline form shimmering with residual trauma from the recent conflict. Ambassador Chen, your species' military demonstration has impressed us all. But many of our members are concerned about the implications of having such a warlike species in the galactic community. Chen's response was measured but firm. Counselor Thylara, I would ask you to reconsider your terminology. Humans are not warlike. We are war-capable. There's an important distinction. Warlike species engage in conflict for its own sake. War-capable species maintain the ability to engage in conflict when necessary for their survival. And how do we know when humanity will consider conflict necessary? Asked Representative Clix of the Vex. The irony of a Vex asking that question was not lost on anyone in the chamber, particularly since the surviving Vex leadership was still in human custody pending war crimes tribunals. Representative Clix, Chen replied coolly, your own civilization recently provided an excellent example of when humans consider conflict necessary. When someone attempts to exterminate our species, we tend to take it personally. A ripple of what might have been nervous laughter ran through the assembly. The Vex had learned the hard way that humans took existential threats very seriously indeed. Counselor Zephran of the Harmony Worlds raised a tentacle in concern. Ambassador Chen, surely you understand our apprehension. Your species has capabilities that dwarf any military power we've seen. How can we be certain that humanity won't use those capabilities against other galactic civilizations? Chen was quiet for a moment, considering her response carefully. Counselor Zephran, let me tell you about human history. We've fought wars for resources, for territory, for ideology, and for survival. But we've never fought a war for the sheer pleasure of destruction. Every conflict in our history has had a purpose, and, when that purpose was achieved, the conflict ended. She gestured to a display showing the aftermath of the campaign against the Vex. Notice that we didn't exterminate the Vex people. We eliminated their military capacity and captured their leadership. We could have destroyed their entire civilization, but we chose not to because that wasn't necessary to eliminate the threat they posed. But you did destroy their civilization's ability to function independently, pointed out Ambassador Veltar of the Commerce Guild. Because they chose to make themselves a threat, Chen replied. The Vex could have accepted humanity as equals and continued to exist as they always had. Instead, they chose to try to eliminate us. They're now learning to exist without the military power they used to threaten others. High Counselor Vortaith leaned forward in his throne. Ambassador Chen, what assurances can you give us that humanity will not become the same kind of threat to galactic stability that the Vex represented? Chen's smile was sharp and predatory, reminding everyone in the chamber exactly what kind of species they were dealing with. High Counselor, I can give you the same assurance that every apex predator gives to other species. As long as you don't threaten us, you have nothing to fear from us. And if we do threaten you, asked Counselor Mordun of the Siegebreaker clans. Then, you'll discover what the Vex discovered, Chen replied simply.
That humans are very, very good at eliminating threats. The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Humanity wasn't offering to join galactic civilization on the galaxy's terms. They were offering to join it on their own terms, with the clear understanding that anyone who couldn't accept those terms would be treated as a hostile force. It was, by any measure, the most dramatic shift in galactic power dynamics in recorded history. The vote, announced High Counselor Vortaith, is to formally recognize humanity as an equal member of the Galactic Council with full rights and privileges. All in favor? The vote was unanimous, though many representatives clearly felt they had little choice in the matter. As the session concluded and representatives began departing for their homeworlds, Admiral Stone joined Ambassador Chen in the observation deck overlooking the chamber. "Think they'll behave themselves?" Chen asked. Stone watched the various aliens filing out, noting how they gave the human delegation a wide berth. "For now. They understand the consequences of not behaving. But there will be others who test us. There always are. And, when they do?" Stone's smile was cold and predatory. "Then, they'll learn the same lesson the Vex learned. That humans are born for battle, and we're very good at it." As the two humans watched the galaxy's representatives depart, both were thinking the same thing: the galaxy had finally understood what humanity really was. Not a developing species looking for guidance, not a primitive civilization in need of protection, but apex predators who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to survive by eliminating anything that threatened them. The aliens had made the mistake of thinking that human civilization was like theirs, built on the premise that violence was a last resort. They didn't understand that human civilization was built on the premise that violence was a tool, like any other, to be used when necessary and discarded when not needed. By the time they understood the difference, it was too late. Humanity was no longer asking for acceptance into galactic society. They were offering to share it, on equal terms, with anyone wise enough to accept the offer. And, for those not wise enough to accept it, well, the ruins of Vex space provided an excellent education in the consequences of that choice.